I've got nothing clever for this one. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Catchy1383 with Catchy Gaming. And one of the things I got to do this week was play a alpha Mecha Break. It is developed by a Chinese company, Amazing Sea Sung Games. I'm hoping I pronounced that close enough. It's not the first time I've been able to play an alpha. I actually had kind of a history on my Steam account of playing various games for various companies at certain points. Sometimes in alpha, sometimes in beta, sometimes just doing test plays on their servers on stress days, stuff like that. I mean, I guess my two most notable ones, I guess three technically. I kind of three. Let's go with I've test played a lot of World of Warcraft games for Blizzard. I did Heroes of the Storm closed beta where it was closed for several months. I didn't get into the alpha, but I got into the really long beta. And then I did New World when their initial like sort of public test. And then I got invited to do the really long beta test. And it just got progressively worse to the point where it was just unplayable. And I let them know that, and they didn't care. So I'm supposed to be talking about Mecha Break. I don't know why I rambled on about my previous test experience. So it is a squad-based shooting game where you pilot a mech, and so far what they have available after you do the initial sort of story is you have different scenarios depending on what you do. Like one team is supposed to defend what they call a stratum breaker, while another one tries to destroy it. And they also have like your classic death match, territory control, and stuff like that. But you do it in a giant mech. Now, for some odd reason, they do have avatars, and I guess this is sort of a selling point depending on who you are. They're rather, I will admit, pretty and attractive. And I played with it around a little bit, but really just when it comes to this, I don't care because you hardly ever see the character outside of when you enter the mech and if you get MVP. Otherwise, I don't really see a point to making an avatar. So I was hoping there was going to be a PvE element, and there kind of was when you first start the story. You more or less, I guess it's just a tutorial, but they have this battle where you fight against a really giant, huge mech. And I'm sort of wondering if that's just something they're going to add later, because it would be nuts not to add some sort of PvE to this game. At least personally, I think that would just be a bad idea not to. Learn from Overwatch 2's mistakes, add PvE. And but as the game is right now, they only had sort of this versus mode where you have the various objectives and you fight against another team. And I didn't know it right off the bat, but they have you doing two missions and they actually have you going up against players. And I was like, wow, these bots are really mean. I mean, like, they're not holding your hand. It's not because they're holding your hand, it was because it was fighting against human players. It took me a little bit to realize that was what was going on. I was like, oh. I mean, I guess I did all right without realizing until after I started getting my face smashed in that I was fighting humans. But I only did a couple of versus matches before I found a custom game and I wanted to try out the various mechs that they had. And they gave you tons of credits and stuff like that to buy and customize the mechs as you want. I don't know why they just didn't give you the mechs instead of having you buy them. That way you could just select from them, but that's the way they did it, I guess, to sort of show the progression system that you actually have to earn credits, and then from those credits you have to spend them on research to unlock the mechs. And I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be like a pay to win mechanic where you can buy those credits and then get the much better mechs, because some of them are distinctly better than others. And they also have some loot box sort of things where you get equipment for your mechs that you can increase your ground speed or your amount of energy you have or your energy regeneration and stuff like that. So then I started trying other mechs, but one of the things I noticed, it was a bit on the clunky side. Like the movement was very jerky and somewhat on the slow side. And none of the guns really ever felt satisfying to use. They're all really slow. And this particular mech, the Inferno, has two guns, which, if the enemy is particularly damaged, yes, you can easily get away with using the smaller shots to actually do some damage, but they're so slow in terms of their fire rate. You think you just alternate it and maybe do somewhat fast damage, but nope. In order to get anything that even resembles damage with this mech, you usually have to hold them both down and fire them at the same time to get any sort of meaningful damage out of this particular mech, which I don't know. This is like a whole entire thing with a lot of the guns, outside of maybe the snipers, that they fire really slow, except for also, I might add, the ones with the Gatling guns. But then they don't really seem to do that much damage unless they have some kind of charge ability, and not all of them do. They're more like a finisher. And I suppose that there's supposed to be like combinations where one person will take down the shields and the other person takes down the health after that. That might be a thing. I don't really know because no one was really talking, and if they were, I couldn't hear them. So on top of it being somewhat feeling sluggish, a little bit on the clunky side, um, it was kind of fun. I think that the enemies take a little bit too much damage when it comes to uh, killing your other players. I'm not a fan of Twitch damage, but sometimes it just felt like I'm sitting there pounding the heck out of a guy and nothing's happening. You know what I mean? In order to sort of down anybody, you have to have concentrated fire on them, and that's what you see like here. Or if you have a light enough mech, where I'm going with a super heavy attack unit against a very light unit, you'll probably see some difference. But if you're going against like super heavy or even just medium, it feels like it takes way too much to destroy another mech. It's been a while since I played Armored Core 6, so I booted it up and put it on, and I built a mech that was sort of like one of the ones they used. It had 4 Gatling guns, 4 legs, stuff like that. And it was super, super slow and just unsatisfying to use. Even with all guns blazing, it just did nothing in terms of damage. You think something that big would just do massive amounts of damage with 4 guns just going all at once. I mean, sort of balancing out that in order to do that, you would go into sort of a siege mode, which they have. It's supposed to be a defense unit, but it just, even with the defense up, it wasn't that great to use. And Armored Core 6 was far smoother, much more enjoyable to use, even with that just straight little short bout that I had. I mean, granted, it was extremely unbalanced because it was one of the earlier sort of arena battles, but still, it was far smoother, far quicker, and just more responsive in comparison to what this is. I mean, it's in an alpha, and I'm hoping they'll sort of fix that. So another part is they had a survey asking me what games I played, and one of those, of course, was Armored Core 6, but there's also Demon X Machina, which they originally released on the Switch, and then they made a PC port of it. And I wasn't impressed with it on the Switch, but the PC port was a bit better. I mean, it's been a while since I played the Switch version, but the game was also smoother and less clunky in comparison to this. And it's just something I think they would need to improve in order to make the game more playable, in my opinion. Along with maybe some balancing issues, but decrease the time to kill, make the guns fire at a faster rate or something like that. Make them so they're satisfying to use instead of just this weird sort of, oh, I used them and now I have to wait 30 seconds to use them again. I mean, it's not technically 30 seconds, it's only a couple of seconds, but it's just, it's just when you're in combat, it just seems like a really long time to be able to use an ability, particularly a gun, when there's such a long sort of pause in between each burst or projectile you're able to use. I'd say at this point, yes, it has potential, and honestly, I would, yeah, probably stick with the PvP because that's an easy way to make content when it comes to games, is, players fighting players, but not a lot of people don't necessarily like that. I mean, just look at what happened to Overwatch 2. They promised PvE, which is what people wanted out of that game, mainly because turns out when it comes to the PvP part, people have a tendency to be jerks. And they let it happen, and they kind of got what they deserved. I would try and figure out some kind of form of PvE if I were them, if they haven't already. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Have a good one.